Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Thursday, and it is March 25th. This will wrap up our week. No chart lessons on Friday, so today will be wrap up our week. This was a really busy day. A lot going on here. We had two legs down to a new low, and then we reversed out of there. For the most part, we traded underneath the overnight highs until just into the 2 o'clock hour, and we continue to trade higher into the close today. I'm a little pressed for time. There's a lot of trades here and a lot going on, so I'm just going to go over the big picture real quickly, and then I'm going to get to the trades, and I'm probably going to move through them pretty quickly. There's a lot of them. This morning was just an unbelievable morning for shorts. There were so many good setups to the short side early on, so it got a little. You had to be a little patient while we were reversing here till we figured out what was going on. And you didn't get a lot of trades to the upside, but there's some good ones here. So again, I'm going to just kind of go over the big picture, and then I'm going to get to these trades. We're going to move through them pretty quickly. But early on, we had this leg down, and you had a little correction here. So we're looking for a measured leg. It looks like it's probably going to be like this right here. That gets us pretty much, that gets you really close. If you use the measured move of the range, which is this one right here, which is this, we didn't quite make it either. So we came up short just barely on the measured move. I really, normally your best measurement on a measured move is going to be to measure this whole thing. And so really on both of them, that's what I was looking for. We came up short on both of them. And that generally means that you're going to have a pretty good move to the other side. So we were in what looked like to be a range here, but this trend just kept going. And then, so when we couldn't go any higher here, I suspect that most people were looking at this as a failed break out of this range above this resistance here. So they were trying to bring prices back into this range again. And they were successful, but they couldn't hold it in there. And then suddenly prices rocket out of there and rally strongly. So that's kind of how I saw the day. Most of our price action day was between the overnight highs and lows, so it's typical of a range day. But we trended down pretty strongly in the morning, and this was a pretty good trend up until we had the break, and then this was a spike in channel. And people ask me all the time, I don't know why that, people ask me all the time about spike in channels. They don't quite understand what a spike in channel is. Basically, a spike in channel just means that prices spike up like this and then they go into a channel. So hopefully that's clear. That's all a spike in channel is like prices spike real strongly and then go into a channel. So you can't really find a good channel off of the lows that helps you. So you have to find the channel after the spike kind of settles down and settles into a rhythm there. And that's basically what a spiking channel is. But anyway, I'm going to zoom in here and we'll talk about the trades. And again, I'm going to move pretty quickly because I have a commitment this evening and I don't have much time left here and I want to get this up before I leave. So 7 o'clock came just as we're rounding out at this bottom right here. And people always ask me when I start trading and why I always talk about 7 o'clock, because 7 o'clock is when I think it's fairly safe to start trading each morning. The volume's pretty sufficient by 7 o'clock. Sometimes 6:30, maybe even a little after 6, but personally I don't want to come in that early, so I try to be here at my desk at 7 o'clock. And a lot of times that's when your best moves are, between 7 and 9 o'clock. And a lot of times, if you get a good setup, you can be done by 9 o'clock. Usually I trade till around 10 or 11, but sometimes, a lot of times I'm done at 9 o'clock. So it just depends on how good a move you get and if you get a runner or whatever. So, but anyway, that's why I always talk about 7 o'clock. I always point out where it starts, because that's where I usually am sitting down to my computer and getting ready for the day to start trading. So, but anyway, we bottom out here right around 7. And big strong move down, and you get a first entry and a second entry right off the key entry point. It's a fairly big bar, but doesn't matter. It's still a second entry in a strong downtrend. I like going short there. And then notice what happens. You actually get a lower high right here, but I'm just not crazy about that one because you would think it would have taken on off right there, and it doesn't. And it does try to climb higher, but when that fails, that's a failed second entry long, and so I like going short right there. And then we run on down. Now we got the break outside of this short-term channel, which is all you really had to go with at that point. I had this one drawn, but we're nowhere near that trend line, so we're working off that midline. But I was watching this channel right here, and it's almost confirmed right there, or it really is confirmed right there, but you get a break almost instantly. And when you start to see it going sideways in a strong downtrend, just be real careful, because this is what can happen to you. You enter right here at this low, and it goes a few ticks and then reverses. So, but I like that reversal, that failed second entry long there, right off the key or right off the EMA and the midline, and it doesn't matter what the signal bar looks like there because it's a trap. And then it rockets on down to a new low, and then we just start working sideways. But really, before it starts working sideways, you get another second entry. If you take this all the way to the right side of the chart here, you can see that this is still looking very bearish. We did have a break in a new low, but a lot of times you'll get two attempts. So when you get this first entry, second entry long that fails, and a first entry, second entry short, if it breaks lower right there with a really small bar that's only 6 ticks, that's a real low risk entry. Right at the key entry, right at the EMA, right at the midline. I'm going to take that trade because you're likely to get another leg down. A lot of times on a strong 10, you'll get a break and 2 legs down. And it moves quite a bit, but then it's obvious we bounce right there. It's not long before you realize, hey, we're in a range here, a little tight range. And that's not a good sign because we should reverse out of here. And the fact that we're not means there's probably still room to the downside. So continue to look for shorts here. Don't get caught off guard on a reversal, but at the same time, play what you see. And we traded down into this, so the bias is still down. And then notice we get a little failed breakout right here. And I liked it just because it gives you, notice how this bar, it opened down here and traded all the way up here, and then before it was over, they beat it all the way back down right to the top of the range. So if we break lower there, we're probably going to drop on down. Sometimes it's better to wait on the lower high. And if you you would have got another opportunity right here. This actually breaks higher and turns down. That would be the only way I would enter that. I wouldn't wait. When that bar closed, it was almost bullish. Let me back out some more again here because you can't hardly see that. I'm sorry. So that bar closes really kind of neutral to almost bullish. So if you didn't enter on when it broke, if it broke higher, once it turned down and broke out the low side, if you didn't enter that way, then I wouldn't enter this lower high here. But I still like this one right here. And it is a little congestive, but it's a range and it's a breakout. So it's a failed breakout basically. And we know prices are going to try to come back inside and trade back down to the lows. So it's a fairly high probability trade, but generally you're better off to wait on the lower high, especially if it makes a new high like that. But you can kind of see we're working sideways. It really, when it broke above that little 2-bar high and didn't go anywhere and turned down instantly, I would already have my sell stop right there, 1 tick below that bar. Unfortunately, it didn't keep going. But I just would leave it there, and when it broke lower, I'd take this thing on down. And of course, there's the lower high here, and I would only enter that the way I told you on the engulfing bar. Once this closed, that doesn't qualify for a signal bar, so no entry there. And of course, we bounce off the low, but no setup there. Notice how we're just going sideways. You don't really get rejection down here, and this is a downward bias, so that's why it's a little safer to enter up here with some congestion than it is down here. Plus, you don't really get a signal bar at all down here. So, and then it runs up here, comes back, it tests this breakout once, test it a second time. You get a second entry long when it breaks one tick above this bar. Here's your new high. You're coming back. It breaks higher first entry, then it starts working lower again. So when it breaks higher the second time, which is this bar right here, that's a second entry long, and that's a double. Notice how we tested that twice. That's a good test of that resistance that now acted as support. So with a second entry like that, and plus we haven't made a new high after this little move up. And I drew it like this, but I'm guessing it's probably going to be more like this right here. That looks more accurate to me. But early on, I was thinking we might get a channel off the first few bars that we didn't. So, and in this one, you get a close outside and move to a new high all in one bar. I think you're better to wait on the lower high, which comes here, and you don't get a setup, and then next thing you know, you got a long going on. And didn't go very far, but it's still good for a scalp, which is what we're looking for. And then we're working lower again. There's actually a failed second entry long right here. Technically, it's not because we made a new high right there. It's a lower high is what it really is. But I don't like it because it's just kind of sideways. And you got several bars stacked up there. It would have worked, but I just think you're better off to wait. And you can see it wasn't very long before it reversed again. And we're coming back down again, and then now you got one that breaks higher and turns down. You can either go short one tick below that on the engulfing bar, or just go short one tick below this bar. This is a really big bar though, and if you tried to use a limit order back up here, you would have missed this trade. And that's why I always, people ask me, why don't we just enter on a limit bar every trade? Or a limit order every trade. And the reason is because you'll miss these real fast moves like this. And what happened was there's all these longs building up in here that don't exit. And then suddenly they realize, hey, I'm trapped. I got to get out of this thing. And so they start selling. And then the new sellers that come in, the smart traders that see, hey, they realize we got a trap here. And it finally runs to a new low. So it took this trend all the way to here to finally get a new low. Well, I take that back. We did break higher and make a new low there, but we didn't on the bigger two-tier channel. So make sure that's clear because I think I pointed at this yellow one. You had the break of the blue channel and it took it, and you still got two legs down, but it took it a little work to get down there. So, but in the end, you get it. And it's tempting to. Here's a good reason why. Notice right here, you got a new high, you got a first entry, and then you're way away from the EMA, and you get that second entry long, and it fails real quickly. That's a reason you're usually better off to wait, although you do have a real clear trend line working down and channel here, so that would be a good reason to skip that one. That's a very valid channel and a pretty strong move down, so not one where you want to be trying to pick a low without getting a close outside and a new low, which you get right there. Again, it's another one of those where you get the close outside and move to a new low all in one bar. But and you are looking for a reversal, but in this case, I'd wait on a higher low, and we finally get one here. Notice you got a new low and you go short once and then you go short twice. So that's a failed second entry short. It's not a reversal pattern, but we're expecting a failure out of this range, and you still got a little room back to the EMA. And the reason I marked this one green is because I don't think you can go long one tick above that and get out. I think you have to let this one break higher and drop a limit order and see what happens. And I wouldn't try to be too conservative with it. Just get in enough where you got room to get out before the EMA. That's all that matters. And probably before that high right there. And as long as you do that, you get out of this one either way. But you don't always know that. And so that's why that one's marked green, because there is a stipulation that you have to be able to get in. So you probably got to use a limit order. If you just do a buy stop, you don't have enough room there, and it makes the trade a little dangerous. So we run up, you get a first entry short, a second entry short. I don't like that as a reversal. It's too far away from the EMA. We do run on up, and that's too congestive to try to enter right there. We do run on up, and same thing, you're just too far away from the EMA. And then notice you turn down off those highs, you get a first entry long, you push through the EMA, you pull back, you get a second entry long. So if it breaks below that bar right there, it's probably going to trap longs, or at the very least, the longs that have got long here are probably going to start exiting. And you can see how it drops down real quick. That's a nice trap. There is a second entry long down here. This is kind of right in the middle of the range, and we're moving down, so we're probably headed down here. So I'd just be careful of any longs. And of course, you do correct here. There's a little couple of legs up, and then you make a lower high. That's where I like going short right there, just to prove we're headed back down again. And then there's a failure right here, and it does confirm that trend line, and that's a nice looking little reversal pattern. It is pretty close to these lows, but at the very least at this point I'd be looking for this measured leg, and you see we bounced right about in that same level, so you still got plenty of room. And you probably could get out of this, but you may not. You don't have 4 ticks before this one, but by the time you get to here, you should be out of it. But again, it confirms that trend line. It's a reversal pattern. It's off the EMA. Whenever you get the EMA and the trend line running congruently like that, that's pretty good. You know, you got more than just a trend line at your back, so it's going to act as resistance. And we just drop on down. We finally. You never really get any second entries in here, but you do make this new high right here. This swings higher than that one. So that's a first entry, second entry long. So that's a failure right at the key entry point at the EMA. Plus it's a pullback to test that previous breakout. If this was the first time breaking out, I'd tell you not to go short right there. But since we've already kind of cleared that out down to here, with that being a second entry, and notice we tested that once, and we tested it twice. We actually pulled back and tested it right here and then tested it again. So there's enough information to say, hey, I'll probably get a scalp out of this. And this channel is still in play. So it could go much lower. We could get a measured move down. And you would have got a runner. You probably could catch a runner on that one. And it does. It drops on down. And we already talked about we didn't quite make the measured move. We get an overshoot here, 2 legs back up. And another second entry short. If it breaks below right there, we're probably going lower. I'll mark this green. It never really broke lower right there. So I don't think you want to take that trade. But it is 2 legs up. And so, and it breaks higher again right here. So the entry's really right here. I should move that over because that's going to confuse people. But the entry is really right here, but it's just not a very good signal bar. It's more bearish than neutral. I mean, than bullish, but it's almost neutral. If it closes 1 tick higher, it's probably a 1 tick or 1 bar trading range. It's only 1 tick away. So I think you're better off to skip that one. But that's a really strong trend down. And even with the overshoot, prices are going to try to make a new low. And the fact that you've got 2 legs up, a second entry short, and a lower high all in one move there. Technically, the second entry short was right here. So, but you could use this as a signal bar too. So your second, this is kind of complicated, but anyway, I don't want to make it too complicated. Just know this is a lower high. Let's just leave it at that. That's a lower high after a second entry short in a strong downtrend. So you may take that trade. It's just a little aggressive. There's another lower, a failure here, but it doesn't even get back to the EMA. I think you're pushing it by then. I think you're better off just sit tight. And of course, we never can make the new low, which I thought for sure we'd make that new low on this with. But the overshoot was probably enough to convince people, hey, we were overdone. It's time to go higher. And sure enough, we're going higher here. You don't get a reversal on this one, and you only get a first entry here after that break. So it's just a little too dangerous to be trying to get long in there. And we run on up, just kind of work. It's just a little tight range. You can't enter in that. And there's a second entry short right there, but you're going short right into the original range, so I don't think you want to do that. And there's also the possibility you've got a trend line working up through here. And by not taking it, even though that trade would have worked, by not taking it, that leaves you open to trade this trap, and that's the move. That's a really good move out of there. Quick, easy. scalp, and then you get a higher low. I didn't mark the higher low blue simply because we didn't quite get back to the EMA there. You can't really see it, but we didn't quite get back. I mean, that's really close enough in my opinion, but this is a little congestive too, so it's like a little breakout pullback, and those are not always the most reliable entries, so there's a good chance we're going higher though. So if you recognize that, you may take that trade. It's pretty obvious this trend is in play here, and that's why I made this one blue too, because it is right off that key entry point. Now this one, it's not really off the key entry point or the support, either one, and it could break higher and trap. And see, you notice it did try to back up, but it couldn't. So, there's a chance it backs up and it stops you out and then goes higher. So that's why I marked that one green. It's a little aggressive. So, but the odds are we're going higher here. So if you don't enter one of these two, you don't catch this move up. So I don't think you want to enter right here, and you definitely don't want to enter up here. And then of course, notice we make that high. We're a little bit lower, but it does turn down off that trend channel line, and then you get a first entry, and then you get a second entry right here. Generally, if we were just trading this trend channel, I would tell you don't take this trade. Wait till it comes back to the key entry point. But the fact that we had this range going on and we have not been able to break higher above that last resistance area there, this is probably going to trap some people. And so it's probably going to be good for at least a short. And you might catch a run all the way back down to the lows. So I like that trade. You could probably argue for that to be green, but it definitely fits our entry criteria. It's just a little bit aggressive is the way I'll leave it. So, and of course we bounce, and you just can't enter right into those highs, period. And then when it breaks out, you're thinking, hey, we're probably going to get a reversal here again. And notice you make that high, you try to go higher once, twice. So you got a failed second entry long. It's a little bit sideways though, and there's not a whole lot of room back to the EMA. The trigger is actually one tick below this one, so it gives you a little more room, and it would have worked, although it's really, really close. I think you're better off to skip that, because you can see we end up moving higher. We actually get an overshoot right here, and this is almost a repeat pattern, but I just think with it continuing to creep up, I think you're better off to wait. And notice it comes down here and it bounces without even getting back to the trend line. And what happens here really is it double tests this breakout area. This is just a little higher. It double tests it, then you get a higher low, but that's too congestive looking, still underneath the EMA. But notice if you're just patient, suddenly you get a first entry, and then you get a second entry long right there, and a nice signal bar right off the midline, right off the EMA. There's also a little trend channel there I don't have on there. Let me get that on there, so you can see that. So several reasons to enter that one. It does look a little congestive, so you got that to contend with. But being off that key entry point and a second entry long, I like it. Notice it does come back, and you get a break before you move to a new high, and that's one of the risks of entering that one right there. So that one, you could almost argue for that to be green, but I still like it simply because it's off that key entry point. It is a second entry, and you get a nice bullish bar, and you probably had a lot of shorts load up right here. And so if it breaks higher from here, and that's really, it took another test, like a triple test, but we wouldn't enter that because of the signal bar, but a lot of traders will, because they know if it breaks higher, they're going to trap people right there. It still looks like a failed second entry as well, kind of. So, but it's a triple test. I just don't think you want to enter on a signal bar like that. It's one of my rules. So I use that to filter the trades, and it'll pay off more times than you'll miss out on a big move like that. So then we're working down. Again, you just don't get a chance to enter. But we're overdue to come back to this trend line, and we actually get the break here. It's tempting to go long right here, but that'd be just technically you could call that a second entry because there's a new high here. I don't know if that. Notice how we broke higher and then traded down and then came back. So technically you could call that a new high. So first entry, second entry. But I'd want to clear 2 legs down, second entry long right here before I'm going to take that trade, especially with that being an inside bar. So I don't think you want to enter there. Close outside new high, and then you're moving lower. But you got to be careful going short here. So you need a true reversal or a trap, and notice you got a new high, first entry, and then you start a second leg down, and you get a second entry long, and it fails. And look how bearish this actually breaks higher and turns down. That's another one. You're going to trap them right there. And what you want to look for is probably a measured leg down, just like so. And you can see we went a little further than that actually before we bounced, and we actually went a little further yet still. So, but I like that one to the downside. That's a great trap right there and a great reversal type pattern and a big bearish bar. The fact that it broke higher and turned down, as soon as it breaks lower, they're going to start running for the. You're going to pick up some momentum to the shorts, and you're going to run out anybody that got long up through here. And look at it go. And then you're just kind of chopping around. There's a triple test right here, but I don't like going long right there. That's your first break of this two-tiered channel, so there's a good chance you're going to try to go lower again, and you see it happens right there. Notice you got a second entry short there, but when you start going sideways, you got to be careful about second entries. Doesn't mean that you don't pay attention to them. But on this one, if you went short right there, you get burned. So, and it is an inside bar. It does make a matching high, which means it's okay to use it. But I'd still be leery of that trade right there because it's just a big up down bar. And it actually didn't go back down as far as it started. So notice you make another move up, and then finally you get a lower high right there. And that's where I like going short. Just more proof that, hey, this move up is over, and now we're heading back down again. And you would expect a breakout here to fail, especially the fact that we hadn't made a new low on this two-tiered move down right here. So you're still looking for prices to go lower. So you just need a good setup. And you get that right here. So notice even this little thing moving up here. You really need 3 or 4 bars to make a trend. So I don't even technically call that a trend. It's just we're sideways, you get a failed breakout, and then it makes one more push up, trap some people, and then you get a lower high and boom. And then I marked this one green because you do have a break here, a new low, and look how far away we are from the EMA. But this is a second entry long counting off the highs. But to me, it only looks like one leg down, so I'm not crazy about it. Although, even if we're going lower, we're probably going to correct them and come back and test this breakout and probably even the EMA, and we may come all the way back to the highs again. And if you catch that trade, that's the trade of the day. But that's a difficult one to actually take right there. And of course, we move up, and this is a huge spike up. This is a spike in channel, as I talked about. And the only reason I marked this one is because it does confirm this channel on the spike. It's technically not a failed second entry short because you're starting here and you got a first entry, second entry. So when it broke higher there, it was your failed second entry. But I kind of like this one. It's a little aggressive just because it confirms that trend line. It's a fairly bullish bar, and there's a little bit of congestion that it broke out of there. So it's probably going to push higher. We probably got a lot higher to go, which you see we did. On a spike like that, we haven't even really had a deep correction yet. The only problem with this one is it's so far. If this was right at the EMA, I'd probably make it blue, but because it's so far away from the EMA, I was a little hesitant to make that blue. It's a little aggressive. So, but anyway, it's I'm trying to rush through these and it still took 30 minutes. There's a lot of trades here, a lot going on today. And I had at least two people email me talking about how well they did today. And I don't know, they didn't specifically say, but I'm guessing it was all these easy shorts right in. This was some pretty easy trades early on. But there's some nice moves up here as well. But several people, at least two or three, emailed me saying how well they did today. So uh, for a lot of people, these reversal type days are hard. But this one was pretty clear, two legs down, and then we just trended up. So um, maybe that wouldn't be as difficult for some of the new chart readers, really. So anyway, nice day. Hope you had a good day. I hope you had a good week. I'm going to wrap this one up. We'll be back again to do it Monday. No chart lessons on Fridays. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.